We are Makilala TV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
Hello, my name is Cristina Pastor. On behalf of my co-host, Rachelle Ocampo, welcome to Makilala. Today we have a very interesting and also a very important topic, crab mentality. Why is this becoming a toxic trait in our community? From my limited understanding, crab mentality appears to be this tendency to bring down someone who is successful or on the cusp of being successful. People do that by being critical, by being judgmental, by gossip, or by minimizing the accomplishments of that person who is supposed to be successful. Remember when Jokoy bombed out at the Golden Globes? Some Filipinos were the first to cheer. Not to be critical of our community because we love and care for our community, but we are just trying to understand why we have crab mentality and we also have bayanihan spirit, meaning helping one another, which is one of the most beautiful cultural traditions of Filipinos. How can the two coexist? We would like to welcome to our panel two cultural observers who will help us examine crab mentality as a Filipino idiosyncrasy. Dr. Romulo Aromin Jr., a psychiatrist, and Attorney Elizabeth Cueva, who has observed the community up close for several years. Welcome, Doc and Attorney Lily. First off, Doc Rom, define crab mentality from a psychological and clinical point of view.
Well, first off, thanks, Cristina and Rachelle, for having me here.
Thanks for coming.
When you talk about the definition of crab mentality from a psychological standpoint, you have basically defined that as you have introduced the concept. But there are really certain core features of the crab mentality, meaning it is something that should be coming from a social interaction, meaning that someone gets to be exposed to an individual. Well, there is a perceived discrepancy with regards to, let's say, accomplishments.
Yeah.
And when one gets to be in that situation, there are certain feelings that can be attached to that, meaning that you can be admiring of that individual, and on the polar opposite would be the feeling of envy.
Yeah.
And then there is this sense of what you would call as egocentricity, and because of that, the eventual outcome, therefore, is when you're feeling envious, there is this sense that if I won't be able to get what you are wanting to achieve, then you should not get that either.
Exactly.
So that becomes, those are the core features.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, there are a number of other behaviors and or feelings that will subsequently be evident in the service of that.
That's right.
Yes.
Let's go to Attorney Lily. Lily, you've been around the community for so many years and you're in and out of several organizations. Have you seen crab mentality?
First of all, let me just say, well, thank you for having me back here.
Yeah.
This time as an interviewee.
Yep.
But the topic is kind of like, I feel a bit uncomfortable with the topic. But just to share my observation, I've been active with the Filipino American community for several years, but it's not as if I'm really embedded in the Filipino American community. So I have a certain distance as an observer. When I was new, I kind of noticed there's a lot of Filipino American organizations and later on permutations of it, chapters. And when I get invited to one, some people will say, how come you joined that group, not the other group? So, but I didn't know what's happening, and there may have been like underlying reasons or undercurrents with leadership. And Dr. Raw mentioned something about egocentricity.
Yeah, egocentricity.
So I've noticed, well, you know, we have very well-meaning leaders in the community, but there are also leaders who are unable to relinquish their roles. And sometimes when there is new leadership or fresh blood needed, so they wouldn't want to give it up and for some reason create another chapter, or say, okay, the younger ones wouldn't want to join this chapter, so they'll create their own. So I think it's a kind of crab mentality in that particular form.
Interesting.
So
that opened up a can of worms for Rachelle.
Yes. I remember the first time I even heard of the term crab mentality, and it was within the Filipino community. It was, you know, Nicole Ponseca. She's the owner of Maharlika and Jeepney. So I remember her talking, I don't know whether it was being a panel or something, and she described her experience with crab mentality, building up a business and people bringing her down. But I don't think it was just the Filipino community. I think just in general in the industry, people just not wanting you to succeed if they can't succeed. I like that you like put that analogy, that example, because then I'm also thinking to myself, it's like, have I been the person who had brought other people down? So it's really good to check not just yourself, but also others in that moment. Like how would you approach somebody if you heard that somebody's talking down?
Let me just add that we were just talking to Fredy, our director, and he said that there is also crab mentality within the Latino community. Lily, you want to respond to
So I don't think it's peculiar with the Filipino American community. I think it's a misconception. I think other cultures have a certain degree, a syndrome that's similar to crab mentality. For example, we did have like our Latino friend who said that they have it, they just don't have a term for it. Dr. Rom shared with me an article before on the poppy plant syndrome, which is in New Zealand. It's similar, it's like when the poppy plant, the flower goes up, they kind of level it off, so everyone's equal. And then in Germany, they have like, it's even worse, it's called Schadenfreude. You're gloating, you're being happy on the misfortunes of others. So I think that's even worse trait than, say, a crab mentality. So the question is, how do you approach it? Well, personally, I hope I haven't been like the subject of crab mentality. But just in case, because I know that crab mentality is sort of a passive-aggressive behavior. So instead of confronting the individual, say you have an issue with that person, you don't think that person is deserving of such leadership role, I think these things should be threshed out or address that person. And, you know, instead of feeding on this frenzy of maligning a person, you need to be more constructive about it. So
Doc, why are we a jealous community? Are we jealous of other people's success? Do you see that?
I think to consider that is also going to minimize the other values that we have, and that is something that you have already underlined, the bayanihan.
The bayanihan,
you know? In some ways, yung sinasabi natin na being able to take the value of your being part of a group, your rootedness, is also in some ways going to afflict individuals in their pursuit of their own achievements. Kaya lang, kuminsan, where is the balance in being able to identify your group cohesiveness and at the same time also allowing the need for individual pursuits? And that's also going to be very different depending on what context.
Such as, can you give an example of that?
For example, you can actually make those comments about individuals achieving already, and then some of the comments would say, just because you were being held by someone. Di ba?
Yeah,
Meron
yeah.
tayong mga padrino,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
can actually work in both ways. Or we may probably have some comments, sinuwerte lang, yung mga ganun. Or just because,
or because may pera siya.
yes,
Yan,
yung mga
you know.
ganon. And so the more important thing there is that, whatever those feedbacks should be, it is in the service of making constructive feedback so that the person is going to better themselves in those pursuits.
Yeah, for me, whenever I hear comments of crab mentality or someone questioning other people's success, I almost become the devil's advocate. I question the person. I was like, why would you think that? I mean, I usually give benefit of the doubt to the person that they're doing this for the community. They are really just making sure that whatever they're doing, it's for the better of the group, not just for themselves. I give them benefit of the doubt. So I do question it back to them. I ask them, like, maybe it is because they really care. So it's hard.
And how do they respond to you?
They don't really respond. They're like, oh, okay. Like they kind of just bring it back. Like I don't ever say like, oh, that's crab mentality. I don't think I've ever.
Nobody will admit it.
Yeah.
But one of the nice questions I got here is that, can community leaders step in and stop this? Can they do it? What do you think? Doc Rom?
I think one of the things that can go against us is that there is this code of silence, in the community, and that can also include calling out those individuals who are doing exactly what we think should not be done, and in this case,
I do not see that happening.
Crab mentality. And that is all going to contribute to the perpetuation of this habit that we all, at least on the surface, abhor. So yun ang nagiging problema. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm thinking subconsciously, we may be doing the same thing, although in a private manner, privately among.
And actually, it goes to say that some of the things can be so obvious, and some of the things that we do may not necessarily be that obvious, or yung mga implicit, or in our language, yung mga pailalim na ginagawa natin.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think the idea there also is that when someone does that, there's also a tendency for others to follow. Di ba yung meron tayong konsepto sa atin na yung tinatawag na kuyog, kuyog, when there is a collective antagonism na nangyayari because of that. And again, that becomes all the more a vicious way of addressing it. Pinagkakaisahan. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what Lily mentioned about passive aggressiveness, right? I see some of us being supportive of somebody outwardly, and yet pailalim, trying to bring that person down. Passive aggressive, right? I've seen that many times.
But I think, it can be for different reasons. But the more important thing, again, is to go back to what is the essence of this crab mentality. When individuals are obviously, have the freedom to pursue what they want, and they have the necessary skills, for us to stop them, is actually the core of that crab mentality. Because obviously, we are free to be able to pursue what we want, especially when we are in this culture where individuality is really part and parcel of what is being encouraged.
Yeah.
Diba?
That's very American,
yes,
right?
It's very American, or probably Western. But at the same time, I think we are given the opportunity to actually espouse that, and hopefully the crab mentality is going to subsequently, get diluted, if not completely not go away.
So have you ever addressed anyone? Like, have you shouted somebody out and said, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be saying that, or that's not true?
I think it's probably, in there are certain situations, it's more like on a personal level. I think because we are also colored by the way, how we see is what is appropriate in us. Kasi yung mga calling out natin, it's not something that we are characteristic of. Pero, in the realm of psychology, pagka meron kang audience and then you become accountable to what the audience is going to say, mas maganda ang reprimand.
I think when you call out somebody, it promotes, fosters divisiveness kasi magagalit siya sa'yo. And then he or she will call her friends to get angry at you.
They build
and it's not in our nature to be calling out people, right?
It isn't.
We just,
fortunately or unfortunately, again,
we just keep it
depending
to
on the
ourselves,
context.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's not a one-way street. There might be a reason why there people are not in conformity with, they don't want to promote or support this particular individual. So we don't know that.
Or his project.
So we have to know first what the underlying reasons are, the motives behind the people saying some things about it. And as Dr. Rom mentioned, in the Filipino culture, individualism is not really given a premium. So we have this collective idea. So we want whoever is representing the Filipinos, we want to bask in that glory too. So if we don't feel that's pronounced in the Filipino pride movement, Pinoy pride. Whenever someone achieves something, even if you don't know this person, hey, Pinoy pride. But on the flip side, sometimes when you're disappointed with someone, or you feel, oh, this person does not really identify with the Filipino American culture, so you don't really want to support that person. So, there are several layers in terms of deconstructing crab mentality. It's not just because, hey, you just want to malign this person. People would want to support individuals, so that the thing that holds us back is we have this concept of pakikisama, togetherness. We want to be part of that success and not to be, okay, eat my dust.
One of the best examples of crab mentality is Here Lies Love. Remember? When it was just starting.
That was really divisive.
That was really divisive. When it was just starting, everybody was talking about it. Oh, we're finally on Broadway, all Filipino cast on Broadway. And then it closed after 5 months. And people were cheering, right? People were saying, I knew it was not going to be successful. You hear something like that.
And that's very disheartening.
Yeah, that's
very
right.
disheartening because, at least in that particular, endeavor, the production cost and all the things are just staggering. And, put that in the context that most of the productions in Broadway, it's really high stakes, and a number of them really can't make it, to a certain level that those investments can be recouped.
And for the first time, we had an all Filipino cast.
We should be celebrating. We should be celebrating, right?
And I think we did.
We did up to a point.
And we hope that will in some way, surmount whatever those negative things that have occurred for that.
And some people were trying to put a political spin on it, like, oh, it's not really our story. It's the story of Imelda Marcos, We could have gotten a better story, So can we not be critical and still not be called to be promoting crab mentality, like in the case of Here Lies Love?
I think it can be both. You can be critical and at the same time not espousing the crab mentality. And I think it goes back to being able to be sensitive with regards to the comments and the feedback. And at the same time, when it is feasible, and that is always encouraged, is to really provide things that will be for improvement. In any kind of a conversation, the more important thing that we should also be considering is how the receiver would be able to...
The victim, you mean the victim of...
The receiver or the victim, in this sense, would be able to make use of the information given to them. because the idea is for something of a change that is on the positive end to happen.
That's right. Rachelle?
That's a good point, because you could tell somebody feedback, but if you know that they're not doing it, if you know that they're not going to be receptive to it, like that's the key thing. If you're trying to call them out on having crab mentality, like you should say it in a way that they'll be responsive to it.
That's right.
I mean, how do you navigate the idea of crab mentality in our community? How do we get over this? How do we be better? I know I'm asking you as like you haven't had the answer.
Well, probably I would do this because especially when you talk about social interactions, you know, if we are exemplars of good behaviors, that's probably the best antidote of dealing with crab mentality. Become role models of espousing, individual achievements, supporting them, in ways that the general public would be able to see. And you don't even have to necessarily say or espouse that we are against this crab mentality, because by example, it will be very evident to the people that these are the things that we should be doing. And again, these are, in general ways, positive behaviors that are worth.
That's true. That's true. It's how you project yourself, too, right? And whatever they say against you, it will not really sink in because they see who you are, right? Right, Lily?
Yes, and also for those engaged in that, be more self-reflective. Why are you doing that? Does it really help you to put down another person?
Yeah.
You don't really need to pull down a person, but instead pull that person up, because at the same time, he can pull you up. So breaking the barriers. So focus on yourself and how you can improve yourself, and look at that person achieving as some sort of an inspiration for you. So that person can do it, so can I. Instead of, if he can't do it, if I can do it, neither can I. Neither can he, sorry.
Yeah. So one thing,
really,
one thing I noticed also is that some people engage in crab mentality by making it as some kind of a joke. So they put in humor. So it's not very toxic, right?
Yeah.
So they make fun of it, but actually they're putting that person down, right? That's, I don't know.
Yeah,
I see a lot of that.
It's definitely, I feel like it's like passive aggressive, like they're like complaining or like jokingly complaining about a new organization or a new award that somebody got,
right,
and your question is like, oh, why did they get it?
Yeah.
Like they don't.
That
they
is
don't,
very common.
They don't do as much as I do. Like you're bringing people down in a jokingly way, but it's toxic. It's very toxic.
Yeah, that's right. So whoever is a victim of crab mentality, how do we support him or her? Doc? How do we make him or her feel not so bad about himself?
I think what makes it more toxic is when we don't talk about it, and when the victim in some ways feels that he's the only one experiencing it. And I think by being able to talk about it, have your social support, and then really look at, I have to go back here, to the role models. The leaders who have done that. So then I think, that individual can surmount those difficulties that they are encountering.
Actually, another byproduct of crab mentality is this tendency to be gossipy, right? We are such a gossipy community sometimes. Right, and
especially with the social media right now, you basically get to be exposed, much more exponentially to criticisms, and whether those are not even constructive. Having said that, we can also make use of the social media to counter those kind of things. Likewise,
that's right.
So it can really work both ways, but the common denominator there is that there will be much more exposure in so short a time to get to get exposed to whatever these criticisms would be.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
should we just accept that this is
It is part of who we are.
of who we are, and just acknowledge that no matter what, it will be there, and to just move forward. Like, don't let crab mentality stop
pull you down, or stop you.
pull you down
Yeah.
to reach your success.
So we should. I'll go ahead. I
No,
forgot
was
my
actually
question.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
You would wonder, therefore, if how the first and second generation, whether you are Filipino Americans or in some of the other cases, in our fellow Latin friends, how is crab mentality going to get attenuated when you are in a culture where individuality is given a premium? And I hope that with the emerging generations coming, there is more of an emphasis in those positive things.
Do you see this as a generational thing? Like the older generation are more prone to it than the younger generation?
I would probably think so, because
really?
those are the things
then
that's
there is
coming
hope
from.
for us, right?
There is,
I
certainly.
feel like that if we can all just be more empathetic and
Yes.
understanding of people, we can just hopefully praise each other versus bring each other down.
Thank you so much, Rachelle.
No, do you have a last message for our
No.
audience about crab mentality?
Do you want to make a comment
When you
about
say
gossip?
something, just always remember, think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is
Yeah.
it kind? So that's what you think about before saying something.
And
That's
don't-
how you quell
and don't
gossip.
pass it on anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Do
if I
not
hear
spread.
something said about you, I will not pass it on to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't engage in it.
Can you believe that we're running out of time already? For a topic like crab mentality, I think we need 3 hours. We'd like to thank our guests, Doc Romulo Aromin Jr. and Attorney Lily Cueva, for helping us understand this strange concept. Let me end by repeating a question which we asked earlier. Why can't we be happy for the success of others? Right? On that note, thank you for watching.